Here we go. And those batteries you did. Was that? Sure.
Call to order the PCOE USD joint board meeting. Jessica, the latest advisor.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know if to say salute. Salute, but I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Your third one.
How's it going?
Roll call.
Roll call.
Line here. Edmund here. Harrison here. Kelly.
Here.
Reed here.
Any changes to the agenda that? Okay. All for the approval of the agenda.
I'm going to approve the agenda as submitted.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Looks like there's no public input, is that correct?
No public.
Okay.
That's nice.
So our superintendent will do the introductions.
So we did a study in early winter of our student services by Dr. Bill Gillespie, who's former Executive Vice President FICMAT, very well-respected administrator throughout the state of California. He came in and provided us a report and some recommendations, and asked him to come to just give you an overview of what his findings were, and just let you know the work that he did that we really appreciate, just a set of objective eyes on our program. So, sir.
Well, good afternoon, members of the board president, and their staff. I've done thousands of these, it seems like. And it's always great coming to the small communities. I've worked as the superintendent indicated, I was 12 years as 3-term elected county superintendent in Lassen County. So my heart's really close to the small counties when I worked statewide for the state legislature with the FICMAT, and traveled all over the state districts, small districts, 12, 15, 20,000. Big study in Los Angeles County Office Education for Special Education, Fresno Unified, 80,000 kids. And what I found is that the bigger the organization, generally speaking, the less organized, more dysfunctional, and more waste of money. The smaller the counties, the smaller the district, seems like I always find a more efficient, a more student-driven system. And that's what I found here in Plymouth County. With your new superintendent, he came on. It was a great hire by the board, doing a super job, positive, working collaboratively with his team. And this team that you have is, I'd say, is one of the as professional and as qualified teams that I've worked with in California. They're just terrific. So with that, and with this, the newness of Jessica coming on board, the new superintendent, and new structure, the really wise superintendents in California schools, and there's over 1,000 school districts in California and 58 county offices, of course. They really, what they kind of get a handle on is they do an independent study. And we've done over 1,500 studies throughout California where superintendents come in and be proactive. They look at, okay, I need an independent look at what we're doing organizationally. We look at special education, we look at business offices. That's the number one issue we look at for prevention from fiscal crisis, and food services, transportation, educational services, every dimension of a delivery system we look at. So your superintendent was right on the money with the new structure, with a new organization here for him and some of the staff. It was great timing to do this. The hiring of Jessica, she's known, it was good, a great hire to bring someone in that knows the community, that was successful with special education. And this report, there was 10 scopes points. It was a very comprehensive study. And, you know, looking at the physical, looking at the administrative structure, looking at instructional assistance, identification of students, and you saw all those in the executive summary. There's a very extensive study. And overall, you know, I just want to say, interviewing the teachers and your principals and staff, just some terrific people here. The principals, great, teachers were engaged, all of them committed to kids, all wanting to do a better job. So it was just really, but out of that comes a lot of work. You know, there was at least 50 recommendations out of these scope points. They're all handed off to Jessica and Christy Warren, who's doing a fantastic job this year, assistant superintendent. And Jessica will be putting, you know, what we talked about is a little action plan, looking at the findings and the recommendations. And every recommendation I wrote ties into the finding. So if there was a finding like we're over identifying kids, here's the recommendations on how to do that. And what we're finding in California schools is that the over identification of special ed kids is very expensive. Serving kids in special education is 2 to 3 times more expensive than in gen ed. So when there's about let's see, about 700,000 kids in special education in California. It's a big business. You have about 16% of your population in special education, statewide average is about 12. So that equates from a financial perspective, that's about $1 million over if you can move that 16% down. And how do we do that? Is through your ed services and the special ed working together to not over-identify kids. And one of the things we talk about, and the compliments to the superintendent and to the board, you have current student study team adopted policy and administrative regulations. One of the recommendations is have someone in the district office in charge of student study teams. It's a non-special education process. It's where kids are struggling in a reading classroom. You get parent permission, you come in, you have a team meeting, you talk about how do we help this kid in the regular classroom. This is not a referral into special education. It's support to the general education. And what we found here is it's kind of loose. You have student study teams in all the different communities, but they're all a little different. There's not a consistency. There's not a cohesive delivery system. So we're kind of over identifying some kids. So strengthening that structure and not being the gateway into special ed. So what we find statewide, and your superintendent knows this very well, is that sometimes classroom teachers want the kids out of their classroom because they're not learning. And so we take them to a student study team, and there we get an assessment sign form, and we shoot them into special ed. That's not the purpose. We need to hold them in regular ed, especially the mild and moderate kids that are struggling a couple of years below grade level. So the vision 2 to 5 years that ed services and special ed have here is to bring fewer kids into special education, serve them in the least restricted environment. Don't give them the label of a special ed child. Don't put them in a restrictive environment where they're isolated from their peer group. Get these kids into the peer group, give them the support, and utilizing a lot of your special education teacher expertise. I kind of wanted to mention Megan, human resources is a big issue that controls special education and the staffing and the credentialing. It's very complicated. It's very difficult to get staff. Does a great job. Just really my hat off to her. I would put her up against any of the HR people I work with throughout the state. She's just really good. And the fiscal, really, you've got a really good office in the fiscal office. Statewide average, just real quickly, is about 70% of a special education's budget on average is out of the general fund. Okay, you're at about 55%. So you're really way below the state average, which is really great, really good, efficient. So again, so Mallory, I mean, it's a real great compliments to hers, and Christy Warren doing a great job, and under the leadership of your superintendent who's brought this team together on behalf of the board. Really it's extraordinary work being done for kids. And on the basis of that, you know, we've never, and I've had a lot of years in education, and probably the last couple of years is probably the most challenging that we've ever seen in, and even more so for Plymouth County, the Dixie Fire, Greenville, the hardships, you know, your heart goes out for families who've been, lost their homes, kids have been uprooted, not coming to school, the pandemic, it just absolutely set us back significantly academically, and we're still struggling from that, from an emotional and a mental, perspective with kids and parents. We lost a lot, not just academically, but we lost a lot emotionally when kids aren't coming to school, and that's just a major issue. So there's a lot of issues that are, and Jessica, I'm sure will be coming back to us this next year, kind of give you updates on what's going on with the report. But you have the right team, you have the right staff, you have a great outline to be one of the great model delivery systems in California. You're one of the 8 unique county office districts in the state of California, which is very unique, you know, combination, which I think is great. I think that more and more districts are unifying more and more districts because our enrollments are dropping statewide. And so I think we're going to see more unifications throughout California. But that's kind of a brief overview. I'd like to thank the board. And I looked through some of your minutes and stuff, and one of the flags, we have 15 major indicators in BitMap on what school failure is all about. And one of the indicators is the relationship between superintendent and board. And an interesting correlation, the number of agenda items that are passed unanimously by the board with the superintendent is the number one indicator of a well-run school district. And you have a lot of 5-0 votes. Don't always have to have a 5-0 vote. You know, you can have your disagreement, and when the vote passes, you all agree, don't move forward. But again, a compliment, you know, don't underscore the fact that you've got a superintendent you trust, got a board that you work together, you vote for the best interest of kids. That's a huge indicator in the district that I worked in a few years ago. We had fiscal crisis, and we actually took over the district. The board became advisory, and I was in charge of the district. The relationship between the board and the superintendent was one of the indicators, so there was no relationship, and it was just chaos. So a compliment to you folks doing the great job you're doing in Plymouth County for kids, and keeping that always in mind. The bottom line, we're here for kids. Any other questions? Any questions about it? Or?
No, I appreciated how comprehensive it was. So thank you. It wasn't easy. It was for someone who doesn't quite understand, so they really go through it and then at least to feel educated on what was happening. So thank you.
And just when you look at some of the recommendations he made, we're bringing Melissa Leal over, so she's going to be our district lead for SSTs. To, you know, and her knowledge of MTSS in the district is second to none. And that SST process is part of one of those tier 1 interventions. And we're really going to be making a focus to bring that 16% number down, because not every student needs an IP. And then we hired a school psychologist, second one.
Yeah.
Which was huge.
That is so great.
And they're not remote, they're here and living in Quincy, and so it's going to be good. So we're working on some of the recommendations. And it's one of those that spend a little to probably end up saving more in the long run.
So what was the countywide task force? What would that mean? You mentioned something about a countywide task force.
The task force.
The task force?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How that task force would work. Basically, the task force, which is really a kind of, we see it all over California. It's a really important piece of hearing from the people whose boots are on the ground, the teachers and the psychologists. So what Jessica would do is make a recommendation to the superintendent and the cabinet that these people would be on a committee, a steering committee to guide special education, a special ed teacher, a speech therapist, a school nurse. The people are out there doing it. When we find it coming from the top down, it doesn't work. We got to listen, and you guys all know that. If you listen to people doing the job, they have input, they have ownership, they have the buy-in. So Jessica puts together for instance, just a local plan or the procedural manual. The procedural manual is the outline of any question you have about special education. You have an answer to that. Yours is outdated, needs to be updated. So, and it's not a big deal. Jessica puts together a model, but with the steering committee, she has them review it, get input, And then she comes back to the superintendent and the cabinet and says, okay, this is a great procedure manual. It's updated, it's current. We've had people in the field give us their feedback on how it makes sense. And then the superintendent brings it to the board and gets your, say, hey, this is how we, because you have to have policies, procedures, and systems. Right now, you're kind of lacking some of that. So when we lack that from school to school, we don't have a cohesive, coherent delivery system. So we have like Chester doing their thing, Portola doing their thing, you know, Quincy. So we want, so, and we did hear this in the interview from principals and teachers. It'd really be nice if we're all doing the same thing. So we have a question about how many, after we get a kid referred to special education, how many days do we have for a meeting? Well, don't have to call Jessica every time. You look in that procedure and you got it. Who needs to be on an IEP meeting? You know, the individual educational part. Who needs to be on that? Well, it's in that manner. So we're consistent. How much time do we have to have a report? And one of the things that's, you know, just an example, you have an IEP meeting, everybody has to have the work done. And you put that in the procedure. And when a psychologist comes in or a speech therapist or the occupation says, you know, I haven't got my report. Says, well, no, you get it done. We're having a meeting. That's what we have to do. And you have a little bit of weight, really holding people accountable in the best interest of the kids. We're having that meeting. So that's a great question, but it's a task force that really gives everybody, and there's a parent on it, it gives everybody a voice. And then we're building the system over the next 2 to 5 years. That is a model delivery system that people will come far from to come and see and review what you're doing here in Plymouth County. You've been given the tools for a model. That's, you know, I'm working in, I just signed another contract for this next year in San Jose, and I'm doing the same thing there. And it's just a humongous system you can imagine. It's just what a little bit of hair I have left. I just pulled it out because, you know, everybody's pretty independent down there. It's really so much easier up here with one another. There's trust, there's relationships. And so here it's like I said, you know, your business office is doing a great job. Your HR is working well with ed services. You've got a great team and a great board. Compliment to you folks. Or, you know, probably in my estimation, probably one of the most difficult jobs and the least recognized in education is being a school board member. You know, you get on and you think, oh, geez, I just want to do this for kids. And it's very complicated, it's very time consuming, and a lot of responsibility. I mean, it's serious business. So thank you for serving Plymouth County.
We'll ask when we do this, we'll ask for maybe one of the board members to serve on the task force. Because, you know, a volunteer, and if someone maybe has a vested interest, so we can go look at that with them. All right. Thank you, Bill.
Any more questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Quarterly report on Williams uniform complaint.
Nothing to report. We had no complaints in this quarter. Okay, quick Measure B update. First, we'll go through with 2 Measure B project requests on. Item 1 at CES, this is as we ripped the roofing off. We found some dry rot underneath. We expected, so this was on the threshold. I approved them to keep the work going, $3,500. I thought we were going to find a lot more, and they haven't. But you know, there's another phase of the project that's going to happen. So we'll have some more under there. That's in pretty good shape, but we want to go ahead and get that fixed. And then the second one for, and it looks confusing, we have paving and then Joe Branch Electric, but that's for adding the light poles at Quincy High School. There was money budgeted for it, but nothing had been paid or included or contracted, and so he actually did work. But we ordered everything over the winter, it was all delivered, and so we'll have parking lot lights at Quincy High School, and then they finished the lights out at Portola High School and the sports courts. Those are done. Timer system is supply chain issue. It's supposed to be here in the next week, but they've tested everything. Everything works and functions, and then they'll be on the timer. So they can't stay on forever, and kids can turn it on and we'll see how that works and decide if we need to lock on it. Overall update from Kevin. He's pushing hard. The paving will not be done by the end of this month up at QHS, but I mean, it was 103 out there the other day, and you know, they're out there with jackhammers and they almost have everything up top demoed out, and so they're getting ready to resurface up there.
Now, is that the solar project?
No, this is just finishing up the paving. Now, the solar project is going out into that parking lot you want to repave. It's gonna be out there. And so they've done all of the trenching, everything's been bored. At Quincy and at Greenfield, everything went underneath. Chester, everything's built on top of cobble. And so every time they bored and pulled it out, it collapsed. So they're having to trench out of Chester. But the solar is moving forward and a lot of the loud intrusive work will be done before the kids come back to school. So that's really good. Projects are wrapping up for Measure B. And, you know, Kevin knows the contract that he signed off of what we approved 2 months ago, and he knows he's on the hook for bird dog. People get it done and get everything through DSA that needs to go. But the current projects are wrapping up. There's nothing really new Measure B. We're gonna let all the dust settle and then see what comes out, you know, what's left, and it's gonna be less than $1 million, but there'll be a chunk there to do a few things. So that's Measure B. I need approval for these two.
I'll second.
First, and then the second, any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Facilities update.
All right, these are general fund facilities contracts. First one is out at Greenville Elementary School. So we got they call it the cow, but that's the temporary internet tower that was right behind school. Worked with Frontier and got them to move it because it's highly likely that the fiber is not going to be completed out there this fall. And this original was why move it, it's coming down. Now it's like, well, we need to get this thing off the playground. It's going to be there at least through winter. So we got that moved. And so this approval is they're going to go through, they're going to clean that playground up and then story still so it matches the rest of the playground and the GES, they'll get that space back. Two is Wilburn. We're starting to see some cracks and some holes developing out in the bus garage area. And so this is they're going to do a repair and then seal everything and sort of seal the kind of the loop, the main loop, the front and around on the at the bus garage to try to prevent any more damage. It really took a beating this time with the buses and everything. They're coming in going out with chains on way more than normal. We have that, and then we have the next phase on the softball field at high school. This is all the irrigation work. They're going to tie into the system that feeds the football field. They're going to tie into the electrical off of that to control the solenoids. So it will all control from the same panel. And all parts and labor have a 1-year warranty. And then they will come back once the grass is down and they'll make sure that they have proper coverage as well as proper water flow. And make sure that it's working properly. So those are the 3 contracts we have. Yeah. Looking for an approval for those.
Second.
First, second. Any questions? All those in favor?
I'll move to approve the minutes from May 23rd as submitted.
Second.
First, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those in favor? All those in favor? All those in favor?
Aye.
Check register. Three resolutions. For approval of those.
I move to approve, and thank you to our donors. Second.
Thanks from the board, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for letting me address the board. I went back and looked at the newspaper article that came out last month. During the officially. I understand that if the newspaper so that people are wondering about their needs. If they're evidence of it, and to bring to you, it was not in any way meant to be offensive to rile people up before the board meeting. We know that we need to work with you. We want to work with you. We want to create a program that works for you. We realize Greenville has always been the most expensive area for a student. We need to get that down where it's reasonable for you. So we want to create a system that works for you. We want it to work for the charter school as well. We want kids to, all the kids in our valley, to feel lucky to be in that system. We want the parents to be pleased that their kids are there, and we want the community to be proud. So if we're clumsy in the way we're going about it, we give our clumsiness and then that we usually do.
Happy.
Yes. Hi, I'm Kathy Osher. I'm a community member. I'm a retired teacher, but mostly, I'm a grandma of two of these, students. And I have the utmost pleasure volunteering in Mrs. Grove's, TK class on Fridays when Miss Lemna would come through, delivering her art instruction. And I just want to have the faith that that program is able to continue somehow. I was speechless every Friday. Being in there and watching the magic that she was able to produce with these 4- and 5-year-olds. And they're understanding concepts like warm and cool colors. Tell me, do you know which colors are warm and cool? I mean, they know off their heads. Texture, depth, artists. It was fabulous. And I just hope, I know she retired. And I just really, I'm so hopeful that you're able to continue that program. I also, you've seen me here before. I get here when I can. I live in Indian Falls. Neighbors. I love being on at school board meetings. I totally believe with every bit of my fiber that schools about helping the community. And so I appreciate everything you do. And thanks so much.
Like going into police stuff and that. Yes, sir. Because then the paragraph stuff, so section 54 by the government.
I think so.
Or yes, leave, then we can.
I still haven't weighed the buildings, so I prefer to be there. Sure. There, they're here, I mean.
All around here.
If not,
There are, well,
My pleasure. Yeah, no.
Okay, this is other thing. Visit the, yeah. Yeah.
Back on.
And we're reconvening.
Yep.
Okay, so. We need to make a declaration of need for fully qualified educators.
That is agenda item 12A.
I'll move to approve this amendment.
Second,
First and second, there being no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next item, 12B, is annual statement of need for substitutes. The recommendation is informational.
So this is just our annual statement of need for substitute teachers that we do state of California, and by doing that, it gives us a little more flexibility with the California team.
Okay, thank you. 12C, can you explain that?
Okay, so this is a waiver of provisional internship permit notification that we are authorizing employment of the following teacher under waiver of provisional internship, and the specifics are is an individual has been hired to teach math at Portola High School, but her college major was business administration. And she has 12 units of college math on her transcript, which meets the minimum requirement. And then it gives this employee 1 year to become subject to pass their subject matter competency test. And that is full disclosure, that's my daughter, Taylor Roderick. And part of the reason we were doing this is we're still one math teacher short at Portola High School.
And that's for information only,
Yes.
Your capacity as the county superintendent.
Yes, sir.
Okay, personnel items, this is item D. Bless you, we're approving bless you, yes. We're approving the HR agenda, basically.
Yes.
I'll move to approve. Second.
We have a first and a second, there being no further discussion, or not pulling anything off of it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries, and there's nothing else under. Personnel issues, right?
No, that is all. I would like the board to bring back next month an item to just restructure our meeting and possibly just put closed session first. Because we have some commute issues with construction, and I've got, 4 of the 5 of you all work 70 hours a week. And that would give us a little flexibility to maybe put closed session at 4 o'clock. And we can start off with some of the softer stuff, and then folks can get in, and then we can pick up with an open session after. But I'll bring it forward to you all as to make sure that works for us. Just wanting to look at it and see.
So you think just for one meeting or for?
No, for the, until the board kind of changes over, then we'll reevaluate.
Other agencies do this.
Yeah.
Or see if we can. As needed.
Or we could even look to do closed session at the very end. I just feel that our closed session is a little awkward right there in the middle. And so, trying to let people participate in that sort of thing. So consider it, think about it, and then we'll come back and we'll have a brief discussion about it next board meeting. That's all I have. And we'll be getting updates about the start of school. When that happens.
For the next meeting is the 9th of August.
9th of August, yes, sir.
Okay, Wednesday at 4 p.m. right here. And with that being the case, let's adjourn the meeting.
Time?
6:09.
Thank you. All right, everyone. Thank you. Drive safe.
Get the fruit, put it in the fridge. Someone eat that for breakfast tomorrow. Unless anyone wants to take it. They
Yeah.
Kids want to eat it or whatever.
No, the-
Yes.
Yeah, okay, I thought I heard that first, but then I.